You can choose your friends, but you can't choose your neighbors. You share a wall, a fence, a property line, but do you really know who is sleeping just 20 feet away from you? These 3 stories might make you want to move.
I moved into a duplex in Portland last year. I'm 27, and it was my first time living alone. The place was perfect. 2 bedrooms, small yard, quiet neighborhood. I shared a wall with my neighbor on the left side, an older guy named Dennis, maybe in his 60s. He seemed nice enough when I met him, helped me carry some boxes on move-in day, told me if I ever needed anything to just knock. The duplex had a wooden fence separating our backyards, about 6 feet tall. I could hear Dennis sometimes through the wall, his TV, footsteps, normal neighbor sounds. Everything was fine for the first 2 months. I'd see Dennis occasionally. We'd wave, make small talk about the weather. He mostly kept to himself. I worked from home, so I was there most days. Around November, I started noticing something strange. I'd be in my backyard, and I'd hear sounds coming from Dennis's side of the fence. Scraping, like metal on wood. It would happen at random times, morning, afternoon, late at night. I brushed it off. Maybe he was doing yard work, building something. None of my business. Then, one day in early December, I was sitting in my living room and I noticed something. A small hole in the wall, right at eye level, about the size of a dime. It was in the corner near the bookshelf. I'd never seen it before. The wall was white, so the dark hole stood out. I got up to look at it closer, put my eye near it. I could see into Dennis's living room, his couch, his TV, everything. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to seem paranoid, but that hole hadn't been there when I moved in. I would have noticed it. I checked the other walls, found 2 more holes, one in the bedroom, one in the bathroom, all at eye level, all perfectly round, like they'd been drilled. I felt sick. I grabbed my phone and took pictures. Then I covered the holes with tape. I didn't know what to do. Confront Dennis? Call the police? I decided to wait, see if anything else happened. That night, around 11 p.m., I heard the scraping sound again. This time, it was coming from inside my wall, between my unit and Dennis's. I pressed my ear to the wall. The scraping stopped. Then I heard breathing, right on the other side. I backed away from the wall. My heart was racing. I grabbed a flashlight and checked the holes. The tape I'd put over them was gone, peeled off. I ran to my bedroom, locked the door, called my friend Sarah, told her everything. She said to call the police immediately. I did. They said they'd send someone. It took 40 minutes for an officer to arrive. I explained the situation, showed him the holes. He checked them with a flashlight, said they definitely looked like drill holes. He went next door to talk to Dennis. I waited in my living room. I could hear them talking through the wall. Dennis's voice, calm, friendly, explaining something. The officer came back 20 minutes later. He said Dennis claimed the holes were there when he moved in, said the previous tenant must have made them. The officer said without proof that Dennis drilled them, there wasn't much he could do. He suggested I patch the holes and maybe get a security camera. I thanked him and he left. I didn't sleep that night, just sat on my couch watching the holes. The next day I went to a hardware store, bought spackle and paint, patched all 3 holes. While I was patching the one in the bathroom, I noticed something behind the toilet, a small piece of paper, folded up, wedged between the wall and the pipe. I pulled it out. It was a note, handwritten. It said, "I can see you in the shower. You should close the curtain all the way." I dropped the note, ran out of the bathroom, grabbed my keys and left. I drove to Sarah's place and stayed there for 3 days. When I came back, I had a locksmith change all my locks. I also installed security cameras, one in the living room, one in the bedroom, one covering the backyard. That night, I reviewed the footage. At 2:14 a.m., Dennis came into my backyard. He stood at the fence, pressed his face against the wood, stayed there for 6 minutes, then went back to his side. I called the police again,
showed them the footage. They went next door. Dennis wasn't there. His car was gone. They checked his unit, found a stepladder positioned against our shared wall, and a drill with wood shavings that matched my walls. They issued a warrant for Dennis. Found him 2 days later at his sister's house in Seattle. Arrested him for stalking and criminal trespassing. When they searched his unit, they found something worse. Photos. Hundreds of photos. Of me, taken through the holes in the wall, getting dressed, sleeping, showering, all printed out and organized in binders by date. He'd been watching me since the day I moved in. The police said he'd done this before, at his last apartment. Different state, different victim. He's in jail now. I moved out the next week.
Have you ever had a neighbor who made you uncomfortable? Trust those feelings. All right, story number 2. This story comes from a couple, Mark and Jennifer. They're both in their early 30s, and they bought a house in the suburbs outside Chicago 2 years ago. It was their first home, a nice 3-bedroom with a driveway and a small front lawn. Their neighbors on the right side were a retired couple, friendly, quiet. Their neighbors on the left were a single guy named Brian, mid-40s, worked from home. He was polite but distant. They'd wave when they saw him, but he never came over to introduce himself properly. Mark and Jennifer didn't think much of it. Some people just keep to themselves. Brian's house was always neat, lawn mowed, no loud noises. He seemed like an ideal neighbor. One day, in March, a package was delivered to their house by mistake. It had Brian's name on it, but their address. Jennifer figured the delivery driver had mixed them up. She walked over to Brian's house and rang the doorbell. No answer. She could hear movement inside, a TV, footsteps. She rang again, still no answer. She left the package on his porch and went home. That night, around 10 p.m., their doorbell rang. Mark answered it. Brian was standing there holding the package. He looked angry. He said, "Don't ever come to my door again." Mark was confused, said they were just returning his package. Brian cut him off, said, "I don't care. Stay away from my property." Then he turned and walked back to his house. Mark closed the door, told Jennifer what happened. They were both unsettled. Mark brushed it off as him having a bad day. Maybe he was just socially awkward. They decided to avoid him from then on. A week later, Jennifer was working in the home office upstairs. It was around 2 p.m. She heard something outside, looked out the window. Brian was in their driveway, standing next to Mark's car. He was bent down, looking in the windows. Jennifer watched him. He tried the door handle, locked. Then he walked around to the passenger side, tried that door too. Jennifer grabbed her phone and started recording. Brian checked all 4 doors, then walked back to his house. Jennifer showed Mark the video when he got home from work. Mark was furious. He wanted to confront Brian. Jennifer said they should call the police first. They did, showed them the video. The officer said Brian hadn't technically broken any laws. Checking car doors wasn't illegal if he didn't damage anything, but he'd keep a record of the complaint. The officer went next door to talk to Brian. Brian claimed he thought he saw something wrong with the car, said he was trying to be helpful. The officer told him to stay off their property. Brian apologized, said it wouldn't happen again, but his tone was wrong, sarcastic, like he was mocking them. Mark installed security cameras that weekend. Front door, driveway, backyard. He wanted everything covered. They started parking their cars in the garage, locking all doors and windows even during the day. They felt paranoid, but something about Brian made them uneasy. 2 weeks passed without incident. Then one night, Jennifer woke up at 3 a.m. She heard a noise downstairs, like someone walking. She woke Mark up. They listened. Footsteps, definitely inside the house. Mark grabbed a baseball bat, told Jennifer to call 911. He went downstairs. The living room was empty. Kitchen empty. Mark checked every room. Nobody there. All doors and windows locked. But in the kitchen, he noticed something. The back door. It was unlocked. He'd locked it before bed. He always did. Someone had unlocked it from the inside, then left. The police came, searched the house, found muddy footprints in the hallway, leading from the back door to the stairs, then back to the door. Someone had been inside, had walked upstairs, had been in their bedroom while they were sleeping. The police checked the security cameras. The back door camera showed nothing, no one entering or leaving. Then they noticed something. The camera had been turned, just slightly, angled away from the door. Someone had adjusted it, someone who knew where the cameras were. Mark checked the footage from earlier that day. At 4:30 p.m., while they were both home, Brian had been in their backyard. He'd stood right under the camera, reached up, adjusted it, then walked away. He'd been planning this. The police arrested Brian that night, searched his house, found a key, a copy of Mark and Jennifer's back door key. He'd made it somehow. They also found notebooks filled with details about Mark and Jennifer's schedule, when they left for work, when they came home, what time their lights went off, what cars they drove, everything. He'd been watching them obsessively. The police said Brian had a history, restraining orders, stalking charges in 3 different states. He'd moved to their neighborhood specifically, bought the house next door on purpose. They never found out how he got a copy of their key. Brian wouldn't say. He just smiled during questioning, said he wanted to get to know them better, be close to them. He's in prison now. Mark and Jennifer sold the house. They couldn't stay there, not after knowing he'd been in their bedroom, standing over them while they slept. They moved to a different state, bought a house with no neighbors, just empty land on all sides. Sometimes the creepiest people are the ones closest to you. If you're still watching, hit that like button. All right, final story.
This final story is from a woman named Rachel. She's 32 and rents the top floor of a house in Denver. It's a converted 2-family home. She lives upstairs. Her landlord lives in the basement apartment. His name is Tom. He's in his 50s, divorced, works as an electrician. When Rachel first moved in 6 months ago, Tom seemed normal, professional, respectful. He explained the house rules, quiet hours, trash day, how to use the washer and dryer in the shared laundry room in the basement. Rachel had her own entrance, separate from Tom's. She rarely saw him. The first few months were fine. Rachel would hear Tom sometimes, coming and going, his TV through the floor, but nothing unusual. Then, in month 4, she needed to do laundry. The washer and dryer were in the basement, accessed through Tom's apartment. He told her she could use them anytime, just knock and he'd let her in. She texted Tom asking if she could do laundry. He replied immediately, "Sure, come down." Rachel grabbed her laundry basket and went to the basement entrance, knocked. Tom opened the door, smiled, let her in. The basement apartment was dimly lit, smelled like cigarettes and old carpet. Tom led her through his living room to the laundry room in the back. He stood in the doorway watching her load the washer, asked her about work, about her day, normal small talk, but something felt off. He was standing too close, blocking the doorway. Rachel finished loading the washer, said she'd come back in an hour to switch it to the dryer. Tom nodded, let her pass. She went back upstairs. Didn't want to seem paranoid, but the whole interaction made her uncomfortable. An hour later, Rachel went back down, knocked, no answer. She knocked again, still nothing, but she could hear the TV inside. Tom was definitely home. She tried the door, unlocked. She opened it and called out, "Tom, I'm just here for my laundry." No response. She walked through the living room to the laundry room. The dryer was running. Her clothes were already switched. She hadn't asked Tom to do that. She grabbed her basket and started loading her dry clothes. That's when she noticed something. A door in the laundry room, half hidden behind the dryer. She'd never seen it before. The door was cracked open about 2 inches. Rachel could see darkness on the other side. She should have left, grabbed her laundry and gone upstairs, but curiosity made her look. She pulled the door open wider. It led to another room, small, like a closet. She pulled out her phone, turned on the flashlight, shined it inside.
Her stomach dropped. The room was full of photos, taped to the walls, hanging from strings. All photos of her. Rachel walking to her car, Rachel at her window, Rachel in her apartment, taken from outside through her windows. Hundreds of them. Rachel backed out of the room. Her hands were shaking. She grabbed her laundry basket, ran for the door. But Tom was standing there, blocking her path. He was smiling. He said, "Find something interesting?" Rachel's heart was pounding. She said she was leaving, tried to push past him. Tom grabbed her arm, not hard, just enough to stop her. He said, "We should talk about what you saw." Rachel pulled away, dropped her laundry, ran, shoved past Tom and sprinted up the basement stairs. She could hear him behind her, calling her name, following her. Rachel made it to her apartment, locked the door, pushed her couch against it. She called 911, told them everything. They said they'd send officers immediately. Rachel could hear Tom downstairs, walking around. Then she heard him on the stairs to her apartment. He knocked on her door, said, "Rachel, I'm sorry you saw that. Can we please talk?" She didn't answer, pressed herself against the wall. Tom kept knocking, said, "I wasn't going to hurt you. I just wanted to be close to you." The knocking continued for 10 minutes, then stopped. The police arrived 15 minutes later. Rachel heard them talking to Tom downstairs, heard Tom's voice, calm, friendly, explaining something. An officer came up and knocked on Rachel's door, identified himself. She let him in, told him about the room, the photos, Tom following her. The officer went back downstairs with 2 other officers. They searched the basement, found the hidden room, took pictures, confiscated everything, arrested Tom for stalking, criminal invasion of privacy, harassment. When they searched the rest of Tom's apartment, they found more. Cameras, small wireless cameras, hidden in smoke detectors, air vents. He'd installed them throughout the house, in Rachel's apartment, her bedroom, her bathroom. Everything had been recorded, stored on hard drives in his apartment. The police said he'd been watching her since the day she moved in, maybe watching previous tenants too. They found folders labeled with women's names, different years. Tom had been doing this for a long time. Rachel moved out that night, stayed with her sister, never went back to get her stuff, just left it. The landlord wasn't Tom. Tom had been subletting the basement illegally. The real owner had no idea Tom was living there, no idea he'd been spying on tenants. Tom's in prison now, waiting for trial, but Rachel found out something that still haunts her. One of the hard drives the police recovered had a folder labeled with her name, dated from 2 months before she moved in, before she'd even seen the apartment. Tom had footage of her, from somewhere else. He'd been following her, watching her, before she ever met him. The police are still investigating, trying to figure out how long Tom had been stalking Rachel, where he got the earlier footage, how he knew she'd be looking for an apartment. They think he might have targeted her specifically, but they don't know why. Tom won't talk, just sits in his cell, smiling. Rachel doesn't sleep well anymore. She checks every room she enters, every smoke detector, every vent, looking for cameras, looking for eyes watching her. That's it for tonight. 3 people who learned their neighbors were strangers. Lock your doors, check your walls, and subscribe to SpookFeed if you want more true stories that'll make you see your neighborhood differently. Stay safe out there.